are more likely to break out toward a nuclear weapon now, which is what those of us on the anti-war side have been saying for 20 years.
Guys, for me, this is the guy to listen to at this current moment. Scott Horton seems to be the most informed on this particular issue. I mean, there's people that come at this from a lot of different angles, but just in terms of understanding what Iran's nuclear capabilities are, what the reality is about the intelligence we have, the intelligence that the Israelis have and that they've been giving us, and just like the overall history, the story of what is going on with Iran and their nuclear capabilities. What are they doing? What are they using it for? Why are they enriching to, 3% or 60%? I mean, like for me, a lot of this is new stuff. We're laymen. We don't know about, what Iranian enrichment is or what percentage you need in order to make a nuclear bomb. But I think it's important for us to become educated on this. So that's what I'm doing. I think this is a great clip that really explains that. So let it play out, and then we'll come in and maybe have some thoughts to wrap it up.
But maybe even take the audience back a bit further as to what all of this enriched uranium stuff even means and why it really was a pretext and not a real reason for the U.S. to strike them right now.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely right. So to start with the latest, they are more likely to break out toward a nuclear weapon now, which is what those of us on the anti-war side have been saying for 20 years here. What Iran has is a latent nuclear deterrent. They mastered the fuel cycle back in 2005. That is, they proved that they knew how to enrich uranium to whatever percent. Now they need 3.6% for their electricity program, and they need a little bit of 20% for their medical isotope reactors. But otherwise, the war party has a kernel of truth when they say, and you know how they do it, they always make it a rhetorical question. Well, what do they need with all that 60% enriched uranium? Well, there's a real answer to that other than they're on their way to making nuclear weapons. Of course, they could have enriched up to 90+% all along. They enriched up to 60% as a bargaining chip to negotiate away in order to try to get the sanctions lifted and try to get the United States back in the deal. It's the same thing they did in the Obama years. And of course, it was in response to Israeli assassinations of their nuclear scientists and attacks on their personnel in Syria and things that caused them to go ahead after Trump withdrew from the deal in 2018 and go ahead and start enriching up to 20 again, and then eventually up to 60%. Now, you'll hear every hawk on every show say, oh my God, 60% uranium. And then what they're betting on is that the audience doesn't know anything about it. And what you're telling them is nuclear, scary, be afraid, and we stop the thing. Trump was asked, but Tulsi Gabbard says they weren't breaking out toward a nuclear weapon. And he said, well, I don't care what she said. They were getting close to one or something. He said, Kooky Tucker Carlson needs to understand that Iran can't have a bomb. So what's implied there heavily, of course, is that Iran was making a bomb and that we stopped them from making a bomb. But that's just not true at all. And, I'm not trying to be, convince anyone that to be naive. As I said, it already was a latent nuclear weapons deterrent in a sense. But what it also is their civilian energy program. And, any economist could explain why it might make sense for Iran to burn their domestic supply of uranium and sell their oil on the world market if they can. And so this is, the main part of it. On the other hand, it also is just like Brazil and Germany and Japan, where they've proven they've mastered the fuel cycle and they could make atomic bombs if pushed to it. So it's sort of like saying, I have a revolver in one pocket and some bullets in the other. Let's you and me not get into a fist fight. And then that way this thing won't escalate. That's essentially been their stance our whole 21st century long here. To go back to W. Bush, he put them in the axis of evil. Just think about what a cynical lie this is, that the Ayatollah, Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, and Kim Jong-il are all in on it together, working against you, right? This absolute total hoax. Well, Saddam said, my books are wide open. Here's my 12,000-page dossier. I'm not doing anything. And they just buffaloed right in there based on a bunch of lies and got it done anyway. The neoconservatives got it done. In North Korea, Bush and Bolton bullied them out of the Non-Proliferation Treaty. They went ahead and made nuclear weapons. Nobody's messed with them since. But what the supreme leader did was the supreme leader in Iran, the Ayatollah, said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to open our books wide open. We're going to stay in the NPT. We have a safeguards agreement with the IAEA, and they can verify the non-diversion of any nuclear material from our civilian program to any military purpose, which is exactly what they've done. And the only reason Obama even needed to do the deal in 2015 was because essentially the world led by Israel, or the West led by Israel, were essentially just pretending the NPT didn't exist, pretending that Iran didn't already have a safeguards agreement with the IAEA. And the Israelis were threatening an aggressive war then. And Obama felt it was necessary. And I'm not taking Obama's side. For people who don't know me, I hate the Democrats more than anyone hates the Democrats. But I'm just telling you, this is the true history of the world here. Is Obama made a deal where they would severely restrict their program. They would expand the inspections regime. And in exchange, we would lift sanctions and give them some of their own money back. That pallet of cash was money that Jimmy Carter had stolen from them during the revolution in 1979. John Kerry's just given some of that back. In exchange, they poured concrete into their Arak, that's A-R-A-K, Arak heavy water reactor. They severely restricted the number of centrifuges spinning at Natanz by, I think, 2/3. They converted the Fordo facility to research only rather than enriched uranium production. And they expanded the inspections regime where America and our allies on the UN Security Council, we have the majority. It's America, Britain, and France versus Russia and China. And unlike a normal Security Council resolution, Russia and China couldn't veto it. It was majority rules under this deal. If we want to inspect even non-nuclear sites, we can, as long as we have some plausible reason to do so and submit the request in a reasonable amount of time and so forth. And there's no way that they can have a secret nuclear weapons program and then smuggle it out the back door before inspectors arrive or whatever, this kind of thing. So the deal of 2015 was engineered so that Iran, if they withdrew from the NPT, and if they kicked the inspectors out of the country and beat their chests and said, now we're making nukes, it would take them a year to make one. And by the way, as long as you're letting me ramble on here, let me explain real quick too, that you cannot miniaturize a uranium bomb.
Yes.
Uranium bombs are virtually always a gun type nuke like Fat Man that they dropped on Hiroshima, which is essentially a giant shotgun inside that bomb firing a highly enriched, weapons grade enriched uranium slug into a target of the same that causes the supercritical reaction. They didn't even test that bomb. It's 1940s technology, simple stuff. They didn't even test that. The Trinity test was of the Nagasaki bomb, which was a plutonium implosion bomb. That's the kind of bomb that can be miniaturized and married to a missile. However, the Iranians have no plutonium route to the bomb. Because even though they still do have one heavy water reactor at Bushehr and it produces plutonium waste, they do not have the facility required to reprocess that waste, get the impurities out to make it possible to use for weapons fuel. And under the JCPOA, which they're still in this part of it with the Russians, is that every 2 or 3 years or so, they shut down the reactor and the Russians will come and get all the plutonium waste and take it away. So their plutonium route to the bomb did not exist at all. And their uranium route to the bomb was delayed for at least 1 year. And then, as I say, at the end of that year, they would have had enough to make one bomb with, but then no way to deliver it other than slapping on the back of a flatbed truck or something like that. So it still would essentially be, the most minimum of nuclear deterrent. And it's, and I'll wrap up with this, is that it's clear from all of the reporting here, nothing changed. The only one in opposition to that is Israeli intelligence claims that something changed, but American intelligence has not verified that at all. The only thing that changed was Trump made up a 60-day deadline, and then the Iranians went past it.
Yeah.
And he was on this absolute red line deal killer that they can have no enrichment in the country at all whatsoever. Back to what JD Vance was saying there, essentially equating them having the capability to enrich with progress toward a nuclear weapon and claiming that that was what we stopped. But it's just, it's no more sincere than Bill Clinton in Kosovo or George Bush in Iraq or Afghanistan or Barack Obama in Libya or Syria or any of the rest of or Yemen, any of these things. It's always just hoax after hoax with these people and their wars.
Well,
Trump is just being led along by Netanyahu and Israel at this point. We're just living in the Israeli frame of how they want to handle this, and they just want to fucking blow the whole thing up under false pretenses. Anyway, so there you have it. Let me know what you guys think about Mr. Scott Horton. Plenty of interesting revelations there. I certainly learned a lot. And fuck, man, we're getting dragged into this bullshit for completely false pretenses once again. God damn it.